Welcome to episode 71 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'll be speaking with a couple in their 70s who both love helping people to create, teach, and inspire others. Jacquelyn and Jerry Clement live in Florida. They came up with the business idea after realizing they both love to create, and their clients often teach things by publishing books, and the Clements like to inspire people with inspirational messages. Jacquelyn likes to word doctor manuscripts for people to make them sound better. Then they help people publish books, if they want, by setting up an account with Kindle Direct Publishing so the book can be sold on Amazon. The Clements also set them up on other platforms too, like Apple Books or Barnes & Noble. Jerry is more interested in visual things such as photography and video work. He designs book covers for clients and produces the company's videos, which are distributed in a weekly newsletter. What's special about Create, Teach, Inspire is that the business works with a lot of clients over the age of 50. In fact, their youngest client at the moment is 40 and their oldest is 88. The Clements recently published a wonderful resource book called The Christian Business Almanac. It's laid out in such a way that every day is full of information to help people of faith run businesses of their own. It provides inspiration as well as business advice and prompts to spark the imaginations of content creators of all ages. To tell us more about what prompted them to get into this line of work, well after many other people contemplate retirement, please welcome Jacquelyn and Jerry Clement to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Jacquelyn and Jerry. I really appreciate the time. I've been wanting to talk to you folks for a number of years, because I've been on your email list for a long time. You do this wonderful email every Saturday that just has inspirational quotes and just fun things in it. So it's nice to meet you in person, or Thanks. Over Zoom anyway. Great.
We're glad to be with you.
How did you come up with the idea of create, teach, and inspire? I love that concept and I love those words.
Many years ago, we had one big client. And we did a few other odds and ends for other people, but basically we had this one client who was 95% of our revenue, which is not a good business strategy. And our accountant said, it's time you formed an LLC for tax purposes. So we did. Well, we got to name it. But we don't need a big fancy company name because we have one client and he doesn't care what we call ourselves. And so to try to speed this along a little bit, a few years later, that client crashed and burned. We had this company named Tuscaloosa Creative Services, which is the area we live in, Tuscaloosa Creative Services, because that's what we provide is creative services. And nobody can spell Tuscaloosa. And we're like, okay, we need a website now that tells people what we do. And we were just brainstorming. I think we were in the car driving home one day from a visit with the grandkids. And it was like, you know what we do? We create things. We help our clients teach things by helping them produce books. And we want to inspire people. We create inspirational material. And so we got home, we got on GoDaddy, and oh my gosh, createteachinspire.com was available.
That's great.
So we snagged it.
You're right. A lot of businesses, Christian businesses especially, pick these names that nobody knows how to spell, nobody knows how to pronounce them, and nobody's really sure what they mean. Create, teach, and inspire really tells it all right then and there. So the kinds of things that you do for clients include what?
Ghostwrite for them. I will, if they've already written their material, I don't call it editing because I'm not really a professional editor, but I kind of word doctor it.
Okay.
Clean it up and make it sound good. Then if they want to publish books, then we get into helping them. I will guide them in setting up their KDP account so they can publish on Amazon. I will help them set up an account on a company called Draft to Digital, which they can use to publish their ebook on other platforms other than Amazon, like Apple Books and Barnes & Noble. So we do the production on their books and help them become their own publisher. Jerry does the visual stuff because I'm a wordsmith and not the visual person. And he does photography and videography. And so now, and he does the book cover design. So Jerry, you talk.
That's our division of labor. Jackie does the writing and I do a lot of the visual stuff. We do the covers for the books that we help people publish. And there's a lot of other stuff, like you've seen the Shareable Saturday. We do the videos. They're mostly videos. Some are stills, but Jackie finds these quotes that are inspirational to us, and we think they might be to other people as well. And I can find most of the video comes from my library of stuff that I've collected over the years and
produced over the years.
Yeah, it's all my work, mostly. Probably 99% of it is my work. But we work together, and it's a good relationship for us.
That's great. Are you the tech guy as well, Jerry?
In most things, we do share that. I do all the visual tech, video production, stills, that kind of thing. Jackie actually is the technical authority on our website and a few other things that she's particularly interested in and likes to do. She likes to do the interior layout for the books. We could work together on that, and sometimes we do, but she's the primary driver in that.
Now, did you start this business before or after you turned 50?
After.
After, yeah. That's what I thought.
Because the technology wasn't there.
That's correct. Yes.
When we were younger.
Yep.
And since you mentioned the age thing, one of the things that I don't really worry about it, but it's a concern, is because we are both in our 70s and our clients, for the most part, are significantly younger than we are. And there was a time when, even when I was younger, I would have looked at somebody 20 years older than me and said, I don't think you've got the savvy to work with me.
Correct.
And now I'm like, now I'm that old person and I'm staying up to date. I use InDesign. We've got Adobe Suite and we're always learning more. Wow, look, they just enhanced it and look what we can do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is that issue. I think as we get older, that younger people don't always see us as being as capable as we are, especially when we're doing things that require technology.
I agree with that. And I like the fact that you are older and doing this kind of thing, because there are a bunch of people over 50 who would love to do the kinds of things that would require a creative nudge or direction. And I think they'd feel more comfortable talking to somebody else who's in their age group, who understands those kind of aspects, rather than trying to deal with the generations who look at us and say, oh, what a bunch of idiots. They can't even figure out how to do a YouTube video. So I think it's good. I think it's a good market for you to work in. Are you working with a lot of people over 50 or across all age groups?
Really across all right now. In fact, we were just talking about this morning, because we work on a lot of our own projects, but we have actually 4 projects that are just gearing up. And it's like, why did I tell all 4 of these people that we would be available in August? And they range from, the youngest one is just under 40, and the oldest one is 88
wow.
or 80.
I love it that there are people in their 80s still creating. I think that's just...
This man is a pastor, and he's written 3 books. And what we're doing for him right now is one of his books that he published 5 or 6 years ago, we're helping him update it, redesign the cover, make some changes to the interior to make it more marketable. And he's great to work with, and he knows his technology.
That's great. Now, what prompted you to become a content creator? Have you been doing that kind of thing all your careers, or what did you do before you turned 50?
When I was very young, I wanted to be an elephant. And when I found out that I could not grow up to be an elephant, I decided I wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
And that's really what I wanted to do. I couldn't, as I was in my 20s, I couldn't figure out how to I didn't have a college degree, and nobody would hire me as a writer without a college degree. I went to work in the transportation industry and learned so much about business because I was dealing with all kinds of different businesses. And then I got into my 30s and said, you always wanted to be a writer. You don't want to get to the end of your life and say, I'm really sorry I didn't do that. So on good terms, I left the company I was working with so that I knew that if I failed, I would have an open door to come back to. I went to, and this is for anybody who wants to be a writer, please listen to this carefully. I went to a writer's conference. I went to a session on how to freelance for magazines. Now, this is going back more than 35 years ago. What I learned then doesn't apply now, but I took notes. I went home. I'd never had a magazine assignment. I went home. I did exactly what the class leader said to do. And 3 weeks later, I had an assignment from a national magazine.
That's great.
Which is my advice to people. When you want to do something and you really don't know how to do it, but you're there, find somebody who's doing it, who will tell you what to do, and then follow what they tell you to do.
That's excellent advice. Jerry, where you were started in photography years ago as well, didn't you?
I did. It was on a personal basis. Even when I was in high school, I worked as a photographer for the yearbook and learned photography. Of course, it was all film then, but I learned it that way. The school had a nice dark room and was able to work whenever I wanted to. I did some great stuff. But then I went into the corporate world right after my military obligation. And I worked for an insurance company. I was a middle manager, a department manager, the audit department for the Orlando region. And I'd been doing that for almost 30 years. And the company had a reorganization. They tried really hard to keep most of the managers who were no longer managers in a job that was satisfying and productive. But I found that I was spending way too much time driving on I-95 for one thing, and said to myself that one day soon, it's not going to be a great trip. And so I started, and this was about the time that Jackie and I got married. So I said, it's time to just make a change. Let's see what happens. So I retired from the insurance company and then drifted for a year or two, looking for what to do. And during that time, I found my old love, photography, and got back into it. It was still a film-based operation at that time. I had a wonderful darkroom at home, and I did some good stuff with film. And then our son convinced me that digital's good enough now to make the change. I did make the change around 2012.
But I still can't get him to throw away that darkroom equipment.
No, I still have it.
It's fun to play in dark rooms. It's great to see those images just come alive. So I would encourage you to keep it up as long as you can.
Yeah, the biggest trouble with that is, though, you can't get, with all the environmental stuff, you can't get the chemicals anymore.
I can imagine. You were doing photography for a number of years. Just personal hobby-like things, or were you hired to do weddings or to do portraits for people?
We have done some weddings, but Jackie says she'll strangle me if I ever take another wedding.
Weddings are the worst for photographers. They are the worst.
What kind of rewards have you received from pursuing Create, Teach, and Inspire?
I would say the biggest thing for me is peace of mind. I find it peaceful to work together, to produce something that's meaningful and help someone else rather than just being a cog in a big wheel.
I agree. What about you, Jacquelyn?
A lot of the same thing. I get to be creative. I get to help people because we approach this with our clients truly as we're on your team. Our goal is to make whatever it is you want to do the best thing you possibly can, whether it's, we have a client that I ghostwrite blogs for her, and we also do videos. of her that where she's either reading the blogs or doing other things. But the thing is that we get emotionally committed to our clients because we don't have very many of them. It's just us. I love the fact that we work together, that we have a 3-bedroom house and 2 of the bedrooms are our respective offices. And actually, if you had told me 30 years ago that I could spend this much time with one person without killing him, I would have said, no way. But I love it. And because we brainstorm, we're making a living, we're having fun, we're helping people. How does it get any better than that?
I agree. Especially gives you a sense of purpose, a reason to get up every morning. Now, you guys have created something on your own and just released it, the Christian Business Almanac. Tell us about that.
The Christian, it is an idea that I came up with originally, probably close to 15 years ago, of doing a business almanac. And the publisher that I was working with at the time, because we weren't doing self-publishing at the time, the technology hadn't quite gotten there. He blew me off when I pitched it to him. He was like, these kind of books don't sell. And I wasn't convinced he was right, but I set it aside and continued to do other projects. And a few years ago, it was God speaking to me, saying, it's time you pull this idea back out and make it my almanac. So we started working on it, and it took us close to 2 years to get this put together because it's a 360 page a day for 366 days book for our target market is business people, but we have found that people, I have a good friend who hasn't worked in years. She's a homemaker and she loves it. The interesting thing is when she started reading it, she just kept on reading it. And I'm like, no, it's a page a day. We have another friend who's retired and I love it because every page has a scripture. So it's something for you to think about, an inspirational quote, similar to what we use in our shareable Saturday videos. And on this day in history section, with information geared to businesses, but it's something that it's trivia that makes you think about what has happened in the past few hundred years. A prayer prompt, a reminder of which chapter of Proverbs you should be reading that day, and an article that is designed to help you grow professionally or personally or spiritually. And some of them have images that Jerry's created that are designed to be shared.
That's cool. I enjoy it. I picked up a copy of the book as soon as it was published, and I was surprised because I really didn't know what it would be in, but it just sounded like it'd be a good book to have. And as a content creator, I fell in love with it because it provides so much seeds or things to think about and to create my own content with. So thank you for putting that together. What is an almanac for people who might not be familiar with that?
An almanac it's an annual book that, if you think back to the Farmer's Almanac,
Correct.
which tells the farmers when to plant what and that kind of thing. So that's fundamentally what an almanac is, a book to guide you through the year. The Christian Business Almanac is a perpetual almanac in that I'm not going to do one for next year and a new one for the year after, because it is the primary thing on the page is the scripture, and scripture speaks differently to you every time you read it. When you go through the Christian Business Almanac this year, don't put it away. Keep it out, because next year go through it. The scripture, that inspirational quote, even the article that's got advice on leadership or relationships or whatever, that's going to speak to you differently. And you're not going to remember what you read a year ago anyway. So
I agree.
I have found things that I wrote 10 years ago and I'm reading them and it's like, this sort of sounds familiar. Oh yeah, because I wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like being goldfish in a fishing bowl. At the end of a year, you turn around and go the other direction and it's like a whole new year, right? You had said once in a different conversation that we had that you will never stop working. What do you mean by that?
I'm going to have to die to stop working. I love what I do. And to me, getting in front of my computer and writing or producing a book or sitting down with Jerry to say, we have a client who wants this, or to say, I have something I want to do that's creative. I can't imagine not doing that. And I think we should all be doing something that we love so much that we're not looking forward to that day that we can say, I want to retire, I want to quit, I don't want to do this anymore. And yeah, I just don't think I will ever stop doing what I'm doing.
I've seen so many people who have retired from, let's say, the corporate world or whatever, and they've decided this is it. That's the end of my working life. And they pretty much stop doing everything, and they don't last long.
Yeah, then they die.
That is a very common statistic that men especially, if they don't have purpose after they retire, they're dead within 3 years.
Absolutely.
As a general rule. And I think a lot of people look forward to retirement. I live in Sun City, Arizona, which is the original, very first retirement community ever created back in 1970, I think, 1960 when I was born. It was actually launched. And that's everybody dreams of coming here because the focus is on recreation. But they realize that recreation is not generally enough to get me up in the morning. So having purpose is essential for people over 50.
I agree. Jerry's a golfer, and he played golf regularly before he retired from the corporate world, and he still plays golf. And we still know that Tuesday is golf day. But even though, again, when he first left the corporate world and he was just taking his break and he played a lot of golf, even he knew then, this isn't going to be the forever thing. I need something else.
Jerry, when you were leaving work, did you have any feelings that you might be making a mistake or wondering what you were going to do with your life? Or did you already have an idea?
I did have a lot of feelings that maybe I was jumping ship too early. But Jackie and I got together, got married, we just worked things out in such a way that didn't come up as a problem. We always assured one another that we were doing the right thing, and we made sure that we were doing it correctly. So, yeah, it was a problem for maybe 20 minutes, but
understand. Now,
but not for long.
Did you folks meet after you were 50?
Yeah. You were
right about 50.
Right about then. Okay.
Yeah.
I was in my 40s.
Okay. Late 40s?
Mid to late. Yeah, I guess probably.
Yeah, about that.
46. Yeah.
Super. So I like that you guys started a relationship rather late in life. So many people might get divorced or whatever and say, okay, that's it. I'm not going to experience this again. But you guys took a different direction. How did you meet and how did you meet?
We have both been married before, and we met at church serving on the committee from hell.
They have committees from hell on churches?
Oh my gosh. This
personnel committee.
Personnel committee. And the first 6 months I was on that committee, at every committee meeting, we were voting to either fire somebody or accept a resignation. And the first year that we were on the committee together, we were members, and another person who was already a good friend of Jerry's and became a good friend of mine was chairing the committee. And then she rolled off and he took over as chair. And we laughed that we would, this committee always, we met once a month, and on the same night that all the other church committees met. And we were always the last committee to get finished because we had so much to deal with. Employees not happy, and hiring and disciplining. And in church, the personnel committee, we had a curious relationship even with the pastor, because we were the committee that in theory managed the pastor. Mm-hmm. Noticed I said in theory. Mm-hmm. And we would leave these committee meetings it'd be a weeknight, and it would be 9:00, 9:15. and the parking lot's dark, and Jerry always walked me to my car. And somewhere along the way, one or the other of us looked at the other and said, after that meeting, I need a drink. Do you? So we started, it just became a routine that at the end of the meeting, we would just drive over. There was a nice restaurant with a little bar nearby, and we'd have one drink, and then we'd go home. But we built our relationship that way. And then it just evolved into, okay, we've both come out of very challenging relationships. And even though we had both been single for quite a while, things just changed.
That's a cute story. Thank you for sharing that. When you were developing your business, is there any new technology that you folks had to learn? I know that years ago, before the internet, businesses were done differently. So what about today? Is there anything new?
Absolutely. The Microsoft software that we use to put stuff together was clunky back in those days and whatever. And anyway, we finally decided on the Adobe suite, which works well for us. We really like it. It's fairly expensive, but we found it to be worth the cost. And every time there's a revision, there's so much new stuff. Not only it opens up new avenues to do things, but it also makes it necessary to learn how to do it. And there's all kinds of things like that. We decided at one point that in our visual stuff, we wanted to have more images, whether it's stills or video, from a level, not the ground level. So we thought, hey, let's get a drone. Maybe we can get up above the traffic and see what's going on and get some good images. And we bought a drone. And then, of course, I realized that you can't use a drone commercially unless you're certified. So then there's another whole process of going through the FAA training and testing to get certified to fly a drone. So but it's all an adventure.
What about you, Jacquelyn? Did you have to learn anything?
Learning the publishing software so that I could do the book design. Like I said, we used to use Quark, which is what I learned on. But most people in the industry are using InDesign. Quark is still out there, I think. But so I had to learn InDesign, and even just the word processor, just Word changes and can do so many things. We had to learn to use Google Docs so we can share things. So many of the files that we create that we need to share with people are so huge. We had to learn how to transfer those files. Just a lot of the little things. And I, in an earlier conversation, talked about a product called Snagit, that when I discovered Snagit, probably 10, 12 years ago, I think I might have even been using the free version. I'm not sure if they still have a free version, but it's a great way to do screen capture. And that's evolved to video, and you can do some amazing things with Snagit. I've learned a little bit about that because it's video. I've dumped video stuff onto Jerry and don't worry too much about. I'll be like, yeah, can you do a video where you have a little goofy thing come across the screen? And he can do it. Yeah, there is so much new technology that is so fun to learn and play with. And then we have to wait a minute, this is business. How are we going to use this? That kind of thing. So
a lot of seasoned citizens find technology to be confusing to begin with. And the more advanced the technology is to make it easier to use, it's often dumbfounding to me. How do you maintain that kind of balance between wanting to give up and chuck it all into the road and run it over with your car and finding a way to put it to practical use?
There's sort of an equation. There's all this opportunity on one side, and then all the work you have to do to make that happen on the other side. And it's a balance. You have to decide whether a piece of technology is really worth the investment that you're going to have to make. But there's so much reward in when you do take on a project, take on learning something, And by the way, even though all these technology apps have great help facilities and everything, still the best place to learn something is YouTube videos.
Become YouTube certified, correct? Anybody can do that.
And we have been blessed with clients who want things done, or sometimes we have the idea that they need something done, but we can go to them and say, we've never done this before. We know it is possible, but can we give it a shot and figure it out as we go along? And again, like I said, we have been so blessed to have clients who are like, yeah, let's give it a try. And I'll tell them, all right, I know this is possible. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. And sometimes we have to go back to them in the middle of things and saying, okay, we're here and we're stuck and we need this from you. Okay, fine. Now we're moving on. Yeah. So there's that part of having a purpose for learning the technology, and which makes it, if you do get into that, this is so frustrating. Why am I doing this? I can't stop. I promised the client I was going to do it. And then that keeps pushing me through, which I guess ties back into I'm never going to stop working.
Mm-hmm. You're always going to be a lifelong learner. If you had to start over, is there anything you would do differently, either in life or in business?
Well, there's some of those life mistakes that we made along the way that maybe I wouldn't do them, but I don't think there's much I would do differently, and certainly nothing major, because everything has contributed to bringing me to who and where I am, and I'm in an absolutely fantastic place.
What about you, Jerry?
I might have had a thought about just coming to this life early and skipping all that corporate stuff. But then I think that I learned a great deal from that.
I agree.
And that has helped me in my current life. I probably wouldn't change anything either.
One door opens the others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. What kind of advice would you give to people over 50 to either help them identify or pursue their passions?
Don't stop.
Yeah, don't stop. But if you're not happy doing what you're doing, try to figure out what will make you happy, and then figure out how you can make a living doing that. And even if what you do is go take one of those assessment tests that I did that when I first started freelance writing. Now, mind you, I was in my 30s when I did this, but I wasn't too busy. And I went to the local community college and took career assessment tests. And the first thing that came up that I should do was funeral director. The second thing was writer. And I thought, I'm going with the second. But there were some other things on there that were enlightening. So consider, if you don't know what you want to do, consider getting some help trying to figure it out. If you do know, but you're like in this, I really want to do this, but I'm in my 50s. I still got kids in college. I got elderly parents. I'm stuck because and I know this is easier said than done, and it sounds cliched, but really try to figure out a way to turn that passion into something that you can love doing, because I really think sin to not love what you spend most of your waking hours doing.
I would agree with that. One of my favorite podcasters starts his episodes every day by saying what you do from 9 to 5 makes you a living, but what you do from 5 to 9 gives you a life. And so starting that side hustle to do that, to bring that passion back.
Yeah, make that 9 to 5 thing a life. It's possible.
What about you, Jerry? Do you have any advice?
As I said, don't stop, and don't stop learning. That's the key. If you do that, then your days are numbered. It's just nature.
Right. Keep going all the way. Where can people get in touch with you if they'd like to connect with you or to buy your book?
Our primary website is, as we talked about, createteachinspire.com. Information about the book is on christianalmanac.com. But again, on createteachinspire.com, there's a place to sign up for our shareable Saturday emails. And then there's our connection stuff and lots of information about us and what we do.
Very good.
And we're different social media. So if you find us there, connect with us too.
So you're each on a different social media?
No, we're both on Facebook.
Okay.
We're both on LinkedIn. Do a little bit of X, formerly known as Twitter, but
that's not the party drug.
Mostly Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for sharing your story today and your passion for creating. I just love to talk to creative people. I think it keeps us so sharp and it keeps us focused, especially if we're in tune to a higher power who's telling us what to create. And it gives us that sense of purpose. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for having us.
I love Jacquelyn and Jerry Clement's story, especially what prompted them to continue to create into their 70s. I loved her perspective that it's okay when people don't really know or understand what they want to do. There's always someone willing to teach them. In fact, what you and I might consider painfully difficult to do, others do it with such ease that they love it and look forward to doing it. Jerry had retired from the insurance industry and drifted for a few years. That's when he rediscovered an old love for taking photographs. Not only did it give him a creative outlet, photography gave Jerry a sense of purpose and an opportunity to help others. Jacquelyn enjoys creating too. What makes her different is that she doesn't care if she gets the credit. She has ghostwritten a number of books and blogs for other people. It's a business ideally suited for today. Jacquelyn was correct in noting that they could not do what they do today even 20 years ago because the technology did not exist. The concept of self-publishing was ridiculously expensive, but today, people of any age can share their thoughts either in a book, on a blog, or via a YouTube channel. That's why the Clements said they will never retire. People can connect with Jacquelyn and Jerry by visiting their website at www.createteachinspire.com. They send out a weekly newsletter called Shareable Saturdays, which includes inspirational material people will enjoy. Their book, The Christian Business Almanac, is available on Amazon and in other bookstores. The Clements are also active on Facebook, LinkedIn, and to some degree X, which was formerly known as Twitter. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening. If you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.